Welcome back to Terror and Urban Myths, everyone. Glad to have you back for another chilling tale. And hey, if you're new here, welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this episode a like. Tonight, we're venturing into a realm where innocence, it takes a dark turn. We're going to explore a sinister twist on a fairy tale that has lulled generations into a false sense of security. Get ready to delve into the haunting depths of Dark Cinderella, Legend of Blood and Crystal. We all know the classic Cinderella story, right? The wicked stepmother, the cruel stepsisters, the yearning for a better life, a chance encounter with a prince.
Yeah, it's a story that's been told and retold countless times, but this version, it takes those familiar elements and twists them into something unsettling, something far more sinister.
Yeah, right from the start. The setting itself, it hints at the darkness to come. This isn't a sunny kingdom with singing birds. This is the Black Forest, a place where ancient trees whisper secrets and shadows hold a strange power.
The Black Forest is more than just a backdrop in this story. It's almost a character itself. It embodies this sense of foreboding, this primeval energy that kind of underscores the tale's unsettling nature.
And forget about the fairy godmother and her helpful magic. This Cinderella has a wishing tree. But it's not a benevolent force. It grows from her mother's grave, its roots entwined with sorrow and despair.
The tree, or rather the spirit dwelling within it, it feeds on Cinderella's sadness. It's a haunting image, this ancient oak drawing power from death and grief.
And the gowns it creates for Cinderella, these shimmering, breathtaking gowns, they're woven from threads of nightmare and loss.
It's as though her pain and longing are literally woven into the fabric of her beauty. It's a disturbing detail that really sets the stage for the dark events to come.
Even Cinderella's stepsisters sense something is wrong. They're terrified of her. They see her unnatural beauty, her strange, fiery eyes, and they desperately try to warn the prince.
It's interesting, isn't it? They recognize that there's something otherworldly, something dangerous about Cinderella. They can sense the darkness clinging to her, but their warnings are ignored.
The prince, captivated by Cinderella's allure, he dismisses their fears. He sees only her beauty, oblivious to the shadows swirling around her.
This obliviousness, this refusal to see beyond the surface, it's a recurring theme in these darker fairy tales. It's a warning about the dangers of being blinded by beauty or desire, about the importance of heeding intuition and facing uncomfortable truths.
And so the wedding day arrives. The castle is abuzz with excitement. But as Cinderella steps onto the dance floor, a chill descends upon the room.
The castle itself seems to react to her presence, to the power of the spirit reaching its peak. It trembles, lights flicker, and icy winds sweep through the halls.
Panic erupts among the guests. They're seized by a primal fear and instinctive dread that something is terribly wrong.
It's as though the veil between worlds has thinned and something ancient and powerful is breaking through. The spirit is making its presence known, reminding everyone who is truly in control.
And then in a moment that shatters any illusion of a fairy tale entering the glass slipper, it explodes.
It not just breaks, it explodes into 1,000 razor-sharp shards scattering across the floor like deadly weapons. It's a stark reminder that in this story, everything is sharper, more sinister. Even symbols of love are twisted into instruments of fear.
And Cinderella, with a chilling smile that reveals the depth of her transformation, vanishes.
The innocent, mistreated girl is gone, replaced by something far older, far more powerful. And the prince left standing amidst the shattered remnants of his fairy tale is utterly alone.
His dreams of happiness lie in ruins around him. The castle, once a symbol of hope and joy, now echoes with the whispers of darkness. What becomes of him?
There are different accounts of his fate. Some say he was found years later, a hollow shell of a man wandering the Black Forest, endlessly searching for Cinderella. Others claim he was never seen again, lost forever to the icy grip of the forest's darkness.
His ending is far removed from the happily ever after he so desperately craved. It's a stark reminder that in this version of the story there are no guarantees of happiness. But wait, we're not done yet. What about the stepsisters? They don't escape unscathed either.
No, they certainly do not. They are punished, but not in the way you might expect. They're not blinded by vengeful doves pecking out their eyes.
Instead, the darkness that Cinderella unleashed consumes their sight, leaving them blind and forever haunted by their encounter with the Dark Cinderella.
Imagine them stumbling through the world, their only purpose now to spread the tale of the Dark Cinderella, the Spirit Bride, a terrifying legend passed down through generations.
It's a cautionary tale, a shadow cast over the familiar happy ending. It makes you wonder, are there other seemingly innocent childhood stories that hold these darker hidden meanings? But before we explore that thought further, we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back. So stay tuned for more terror and urban myths, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave us a like if you're enjoying the show. And we're back with Terror and Urban Myths, exploring the haunting depths of Dark Cinderella, Legend of Blood and Crystal. You know, it's fascinating how this story subverts so many classic fairy tale tropes.
Absolutely. This version turns the traditional Cinderella narrative on its head. It takes those familiar elements, the wicked stepmother, the yearning for a better life, and imbues them with a chilling new meaning.
It's like peeling back the layers of a familiar story and finding something unexpected, something that makes you question everything you thought you knew.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why these dark fairy tales like this one are so compelling. They force us to confront the shadows that lurk beneath the surface of our collective consciousness.
Right, we often associate fairy tales with innocence and childhood. But this version reminds us that those stories often originated from a much darker, more primal place.
Yeah, they were cautionary tales meant to teach lessons about the dangers of the world, about the consequences of greed, envy, and despair.
And in Dark Cinderella, we see those consequences play out in a particularly chilling way. Cinderella's desire for a better life leads her down a path of darkness, and her transformation is both seductive and terrifying.
Her journey is a cautionary tale about the allure of power, about the temptation to make deals with dark forces to achieve our desires.
And the prince, blinded by her beauty, becomes a victim of his own naivete. He fails to see the danger lurking beneath the surface, and he pays a terrible price for his ignorance.
It's a reminder that we can't always trust appearances, that sometimes the most beautiful things can hide the darkest secrets.
This story really makes you think about the nature of good and evil. In the traditional Cinderella, the lines are clear. Cinderella is the good guy, the stepmother and stepsisters are the bad guys. But here, the boundaries are blurred.
Absolutely. This version challenges those simple binary distinctions. Cinderella is not a purely innocent victim. She becomes a force of darkness herself and the stepsisters, while Cool ultimately try to warn the prince about the danger he's in.
It's a much more nuanced portrayal of human nature, where characters aren't simply good or evil, but capable of both darkness and light.
And that complexity makes the story far more unsettling and thought-provoking. It forces us to reevaluate our own assumptions about good and evil, and to recognize that even in the darkest of tales, there can be shades of gray.
We see this ambiguity reflected in the symbolism of the wishing tree. It grants Cinderella's wishes, but it also feeds on her sorrow, twisting her pain and longing into something monstrous.
The tree is a powerful symbol of the duality of nature. It represents both life and death, hope and despair. It grants wishes, but at a terrible cost.
It's like a twisted inversion of the tree of life, a symbol of interconnectedness and vitality.
Precisely this version of the tree represents a corrupted version of that life force, a source of power that is ultimately destructive.
It's fascinating how this story uses familiar fairy tale elements to explore such complex themes. The wishing tree, the glass slipper, the transformation scene, they all take on a darker, more sinister meaning in this retelling.
And that's the brilliance of Dark Cinderella. It doesn't simply rehash the classic tale. It digs deeper, exploring the psychological and archetypal dimensions of the story.
It challenges us to look beyond the surface, to confront the shadows that lurk beneath our collective fairy tales.
And to recognize that even in the realm of fantasy, there are consequences for our actions, and sometimes the price of our desires can be far greater than we ever imagined.
Dark Cinderella, Legend of Blood and Crystal, is a story that lingers in the mind long after the telling. It's a story that reminds us that the darkness can be both seductive and destructive, and that sometimes the most beautiful things can hide the most terrifying secrets. We'll be right back after a short message. So stay tuned for more terror and urban myths, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave us a like if you're enjoying the show.
Oh.
And we're back with terror and urban myths. We've been, exploring the dark side of fairy tales with Dark Cinderella, Legend of Blood and Crystal, and it's clear that this story has a lot to say about the human condition.
It really does, yeah. It's not just a spoopy retelling. It's a story about the, complexities of human desire, the consequences of our choices, and that blurred line between innocence and darkness.
The story takes us to some pretty dark places. The castle descends into chaos. The prince is driven to madness. The stepsisters are punished with blindness. It's a far cry from the happily ever after we're used to in traditional fairy tales.
Right. And I think that's part of what makes this version so powerful. It challenges our expectations and it forces us to confront the reality that life isn't always a neat and tidy fairy tale.
Yeah, it's like the story is holding up a mirror to our own anxieties and fears, reminding us that even in the midst of beauty and joy, darkness can lurk just beneath the surface.
Exactly. And it's a darkness that can consume us if we're not careful. Look at Cinderella. She starts as a victim abused and neglected, and in her desperation, she makes a deal with a dark force.
Yeah, and it's a deal that ultimately transforms her, but not in the way she might have hoped. Her beauty becomes a weapon, her innocence is lost, and she becomes a source of terror herself.
Right, her transformation is a cautionary tale about the seductive nature of power and the dangers of seeking it from the wrong sources. It's a reminder that sometimes the things we desire most can ultimately destroy us.
And the prince, he's so fixated on Cinderella's beauty that he's completely blind to the warning signs, the red flags that are waving right in front of him.
His obsession ultimately leads to his downfall. It's a reminder that we need to be aware of our own blind spots, those things that cloud our judgment and prevent us from seeing the truth.
The story really challenges our traditional notions of good and evil. Cinderella isn't purely good, and the stepsisters, while cruel, aren't entirely evil. They each possess a mix of both, which makes them much more human, much more relatable.
Absolutely. And that's what makes the story so compelling. It's not a simple morality tale with clear-cut heroes and villains. It's a nuanced exploration of human nature with all its complexities and contradictions.
Dark Cinderella, Legend of Blood and Crystal, is a story that stays with you long after you've heard it. It's unsettling, it's thought-provoking, and ultimately a reminder that even in the world of fairy tales, darkness has a way of finding us. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Terror and Urban Myths. We hope you found this exploration of Dark Cinderella as chilling and thought-provoking as we did. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a like, and be sure to tune in next time for another journey into the shadowy realm of terror and urban legends. Until then, sleep tight and keep the lights on.